Welcome to The Practical Intuitive, where host Robyn Fritz explores mind, body, and spirit for the real world. Robyn is an intuitive, spiritual consultant and past life regression specialist based in Seattle, Washington. As the Practical Intuitive, she explores life on our conscious, evolving planet, our Mother. It's all here, from how the world really works to intuition, the human-animal bond, mediumship, clearing space with space cooperating, and spirituality. It's Robyn Fritz, the Practical Intuitive, helping you master body, mind, and spirit for the real world. No ifs, ands, buts, or BS ever.
Welcome to the Practical Intuitive Mind, Body, Spirit for the Real World. It's Robyn Fritz, and it is Monday, August 16th, 2021. So for August, like deep summer when everybody's supposedly enjoying themselves in the nice weather, I thought it would be a good time to talk about our animal families. It's always a subject close to my heart, and we never run out of things to say about them. So today, and I did that for the first month. My show airs the first and third Monday of the month. Today we're talking about getting practical with our animal families. And we're going to talk about what intuition is, what common sense is, soul purpose and soul choice, which is pretty amazing, really. And then some really, really practical matters from my many years, 3 decades of living with animals as families, and from what I see out there in my practice. So welcome again. It's Robyn Fritz. So I offer intuitive and spiritual consulting and past life regression. And one of the things close to my heart is animal communication and living with families as animals. And so as you listen today, I'd like you to put aside everything you're thinking about your animal families, whether they're here still in bodies or whether they've moved on into the afterlife, and think about it in a different way. And to help you do that, invite you to connect with my business partner, the crystal Fallon. Yes, he's a crystal. Citrine Lemurian quartz. Basically, Fallon is an ancient power crystal. We are back together after many lifetimes apart and many lifetimes together. And you can experience his energy on the show, whether you're listening live or in the archives, in the way that your intuition works most strongly. And that'll also help you with the rest of the show today. So whether you see pictures, hear him speak to you, feel his energy, or just know that you're connected to him, take a deep breath and let's get grounded and balanced in this space together. So as you take a deep breath, breathe all healthy energy straight to your gut. And as you exhale, just let go of the cares of the day. Feel yourself settling in your chair. Again, please don't do this if you're driving. Feel yourself settling into your chair and just let everything go. Everything that you were doing right up until this moment to the start of the show, and just give yourself this time to be in community, the community that OMTimes has created for us. And so imagine an energy line running from head to toe. And just as that energy line runs head to toe, imagine that's energy from Fallon. A lot of people experience him as a gold light. But just imagine running down from the top of your head, down your face, shoulders, chest, hips, knees, and feet. And then back up again, feet, knees, hips, chest, shoulders, face, and the top of your head. Just feel that energy line run through and clearing you out, getting you ready for this conversation. So, as I have said over and over again, intuition and healing are skills. They're not gifts. We're all intuitives and healers. And we all need to learn to use our intuition in more and more people are starting to use their intuition in relation to their animal families. And I'm going to invite you to think about it a little bit differently today. I'm going to invite you to think about your animals as equals to us, as family members, not pets, and what that means in our relationship with them. And what happens when things change, right? And how do we look at caring for them, and how do we look at soul purpose? So when we look at an animal as an equal to us, then we're realizing what they really are, that they are a soul that has chosen an animal body for that particular lifetime, for that particular experience. It may be that they just wanted to experience being in that animal body, or as I have discovered with my own animal family members, animal bodies tend to be easier than human bodies when you've got big world work to do. And that should humble us all, right? Because we humans tend to let our egos get in the way of thinking and acting, and we tend to overthink, and we don't tend to just jump in and experience. And our animals are really good at experiencing, and they're also really good at remembering previous lifetimes. But as I've said over and over again, that doesn't make them our gurus, our leaders, our healers, our teachers. It makes them beings who have chosen a body of an animal to do their work in that lifetime. And when we choose to come together as families, that's another choice we make together, our sole choice to live together as family members. So what does that mean to look at an animal as a soul who chose an animal body to do its work? How do we go about caring for their mind, body, and spirit needs? So it's a tough issue, right? Because I tell you, when we're looking at the world, particularly the world in the last over a year and a half since the pandemic started, and the world is shaking up in many, many different ways. Things are changing rapidly, and we need to look at what that means for us in our animal families. And we need to rise to the challenge of a changing world. And I'm going to invite you to rise to the challenge of practical daily intuition with you and your animal families. It can be fun, right? And we can back off some of the stress of our times and look at what common sense tells us in dealing with our animals. So, believe it or not, and you should believe me when I tell you, intuition and common sense go hand in hand. You can't be successful without them both. And that's why, for the most part, I am not part of what I call the overall metaphysical, so to speak, community out there, because many people are lost in this whole concept of spirit is in charge. And I go, who's spirit? And like nobody can answer that question outside of Webster's dictionary. Spirit is spirit, right? And people are in their heads, they're in what they think their higher self is, and they're not like walking down the street living their daily life. And that's what you need to do when you're living, even when you're not living with animals, but particularly when you are, because they have their own needs and wants as souls, but also because of the bodies that they've chosen, their animal bodies. So a real test of our intuition is living with our animal families and discerning what works for them, what works for you, and what's right versus what politics and time have distorted in our relationship with our animal families. So living with them is a sacred trust on their part and on ours, right? So let's start at the beginning. You get an animal, and let's narrow it down to dogs. And, let me be frank here, because I have just been informed that I have a life-changing situation on my hands personally, and it affects my life with my animal family. And it already is affecting it and will coming forward. No, I'm not planning on dying, but I am planning on major life change called a hip replacement. But I'm already substantially handicapped, and I had no idea this was coming. I did not know this kind of thing happened out of the blue. But what did happen is I have a 6-year-old Cavalier King Charles Spaniel, a delightful little dog that right now I cannot walk, right? So he's had a series of people walking him early in the morning. I can take him out briefly, but not for the long walk my prima donna son thinks he needs every day, and which he does, right? We all need exercise. I need exercise. But boy, have I noticed things again with people helping me. And I love the people that have helped me. And I've been watching people on the street, especially the last year or so in the pandemic. And a couple things come to mind. And if I sound like I'm wandering, I am kind of wandering here in the conversation. Because when the pandemic started and people started adopting animals from the shelters or from wherever they got them, and breeders were running out of animals, and everybody thought, oh, isn't this great? You know, all these people are going to have pets, and all these pets are going to have families, and maybe pets do have families. But animals as souls have something else, right? And I was very concerned at the time because I thought, oh my God, when things ease up and people go back to work, what's going to happen to those animals? And I knew, and so do you, that they were going to all go back to the shelter. Not all, a lot of them. And that's a crime. It's a crime against them. It's a crime against you. And it's a crime against the bond of a family. So how do you think about it? Well, you know, sometimes families break up. Sometimes you have to rehome an animal. Sometimes things happen. And that's what the good people in the world who help with that are helping you with, if that's what you need. But if you've adopted an animal in the last year and a half and you don't know anything about caring for them, start thinking about it differently than the trainers teach you. For example, let's talk about dogs. Yeah, years ago when I first got a dog, I didn't know anything about it. I didn't go to training school. I don't think they even had them back then. And so I learned from my mistakes. And so I cringe, but I also give people leeway when I see them making mistakes out there with their animals, like we all do. Like flexilides are like crazy. I mean, they're illegal in Seattle where I live, and yet people still use them. But here's the thing. When you're out with your dog, think about what a dog needs and wants and what it's experiencing. And how you can join in that, or how you can just be present for that. My boy thinks he needs to water everything in the neighborhood. So the first person who walked him brought him back at 8 o'clock in the morning and laughingly handed him over saying he had 2 poops and 75 pees. That pretty much describes him. But that's who he is, right? And if he sees something on the sidewalk that wasn't in that spot yesterday, God knows why he remembers that kind of thing, but he does. It's important to him to remember, apparently. He will pee on it to establish his territory or just to let it know it he's noticed. But what I have noticed about other people going to training schools is how they treat their animals, and I'm asking you to treat them differently. For example, my dog, I literally, he came back, he reincarnated, he remembered everything. He remembered me, he remembered the cat, he remembered the house, he knew where his food bowl was. Did he remember his training? No, he did not. And I admit I've been lax about it. But what are they teaching you in dog training school, for crying out loud? So if a dog jumps up on you, of course, my dog is little, and I've had a Great Dane jump up on me, so I know how dangerous that is. But people are trained to automatically put a knee in their face or in their chest or whatever. Really? If a human comes up to you, would you knee them unless they were attacking you? I mean, like, how cruel is that, and how dominant is that? And is it doing any good? All you're teaching the dog is that you don't like it for one reason or another. Another one is turning your back if they annoy you, like turning your back on them. Like, come on. Start treating your animals like you would other people and reinvent the training. So if you don't want your dog jumping up on you or somebody else, train them to sit with a treat. I mean, granted, they don't talk to us the same way we talk to other humans. You can understand them intuitively, but it's hard with your own, I know from experience. But learn to treat them as you would want to be treated. And that's where creating families with animals starts. And that's where your intuition and your common sense with your animal family starts. How do we live with them as equals, not as patriarchal dominators? How do we train them? How do we live with them? And if I promise you, if my dog jumps up on you, I will apologize and correct it. But if you knee him, I will take you down. Yes, it's cruel and it's abusive and it's assault and battery. So think about that. And when you take an animal through training, think about what they're telling you to do, because even the so-called positive training is really all about patriarchal dominance. Think about that. And I'm going to talk about that in an upcoming show, how we think about living in the world and all the little things that trip us up. And believe me, we all get tripped up. So let's talk about soul choice. We're going to take a break and we're going to come back and talk about what soul choice is and soul purpose is and how you might identify that in your animal families. Hang on. We'll be back after the break.
Your conscious connection to a more mindful world. OMTimes Radio. IOM-FM. OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
This segment of The Practical Intuitive is brought to you by Andrea Bovey, licensed insurance agent at boveyinsurance.com. Andrea specializes in affordable health insurance for Americans of all ages. Yes, affordable health insurance exists. It's called a defined benefit plan. It's a budget concept. That means you'll be able to see any doctor, access outpatient services, receive covered preventative services such as mammograms and colonoscopies, enjoy unlimited free virtual doctor visits, and be covered for urgent care, ER, and hospital visits. But there's more. During a free consultation, insurance agent Andrea Bovey can help you decide if you should add critical illness or accident coverage, so all your risks are covered when something serious occurs. All this while still delivering savings. Yes, the premiums can be much lower than those in the Affordable Care Act plans. Ready to check it out? Go to boveyinsurance.com to book a free consultation with insurance agent Andrea Bovey. Andrea is based in Arizona, but she works by phone and webinar so she can help you wherever you are in the United States. One more thing. If you're nearing your 65th birthday or you are already on Medicare, Andrea can assist you with Medicare health and drug plans. Andrea works with her clients to find the best health care products at the best prices. Ready to learn more? Contact Andrea Bovey at boveyinsurance.com. That's BOVEY insurance.com.
This is Kathy Beal, host of Celestial Compass, featuring astrology you can use. Celestial Compass points you to what's going on in the sky and what you can do with it down here on Earth. We also explore fun, effective, and cosmic tools for navigating this adventure we call life. Join me the first and third Monday of the month at 5 p.m. Eastern Time for Celestial Compass. It's enlightening, entertaining, and empowering.
You came across someone struggling with hunger. How would you recognize them? Would you notice an 8-year-old girl who's not excited for summer break
because she may not be having lunch again until September?
Or a war veteran who's having a hard time landing
a job and getting back on his feet?
I am the 1 in 8 Americans who struggle with hunger. I am hunger in America.
Hunger can be hard to recognize. Learn why at IamHungerInAmerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to the Practical Intuitive Mind, Body, Spirit for the Real World. It's Robyn, Fritz, and it is a cloudy day in Seattle, and we are hoping for rain in the midst of a drought here on the west coast of the United States. So we're talking about being practical with our animal families, practical, common sense, and how intuition ties into that. And that brings up the subject of soul purpose. You know, a lot of people, they book appointments for themselves, and we're all asking the same question: what is my soul purpose? Right? What am I here to do? And really, you know, I don't get into what everybody else thinks about the subject. I know from working with my dad with souls in the afterlife, and from personal experience, and just from observation, and this is how I see it. Soul purpose comes down to one thing, and that's that our souls are eternal. They choose the body, the circumstance, not this circumstance, the body. Like some don't come back, like my dad has stayed in the afterlife, but others choose bodies to come back to. That's why they call it reincarnate, as in a body. But they choose the body they need to do their work in for that lifetime. But the overall purpose of all of us and all of our souls is always to grow in self-love. And boy, if I'm talking about it, it's got to be true, because I never really believed in love. It took me a long time, years of being disabled and ill, and so many things that happened. It was hard to believe that love was a possibility, or even what it meant. And so people talk about unconditional love, and like, what is that? And like, that's ridiculous. Well, it just means we learn to love ourselves regardless of our faults and our mistakes. But in each experience of our soul, whether we incarnate in a body or whether we stay in the afterlife and do some other work, we're always growing toward loving ourselves, and that is always the hardest thing there is. And our animals are doing the same thing. They're just doing it in an animal body. It doesn't make them less than us, because we're human and we're caretakers and guardians, because that's not a true thing. Being caretakers and guardians is something we made up to fit religion, to fit culture, to fit our own lack of, I don't know, belief and trust in ourselves, that we felt we had to say we were in charge of everything because otherwise we wouldn't be as important or something. I don't know. But souls are eternal, and the bodies they choose in that particular lifetime helps them do whatever they chose in that lifetime, which is to learn to love themselves, and then also to experience things, right? And I met many animals who had different purposes, and some of them just loved having an animal body to play in. And that's fine, right? Now, all the animals that I've lived with, since I've been consciously aware that they were souls returning to be with me as I was returning to be with them, my animals have had what a famous animal communicator called cosmic jobs. Yeah, they do. And you'd be amazed at what they are if we stop to pull away the blinkers of our arrogance about humans being in charge and really look at what a soul in an animal body can do, right? So they choose that body to do that work in that lifetime. And I'll tell you some stories about that coming up here. But soul choice is not the crap that happens to you. And it's not karma. And I will go to my grave claiming karma isn't real. Karma is something created by the patriarchy to keep you in line. It's created to hurt and subdue people. And anything that accepts illness, disability, pain, suffering, and calls it karma, even if you did something bad, there's something wrong there, because it is not love. And love is the first thing to think about in your own life and with your animal families. Now, soul choice, soul purpose is also a family thing, right? So souls can come back to be part of families, and that's what I have noticed with my animal families, that they have come back to be with me. And as I became more aware, I realized how many lifetimes we shared together, right? Which is very humbling. And if there's one thing you take away from this show today, it's to be as humble as possible. That means pulling away the blinkers, pulling away the things that make you feel important, and looking at your animal families as souls that have chosen those particular bodies to do their work in, and then what it means from that. Now, we will look at gentle, loving animals, and we will say, oh my goodness, how cute, or they're always loving us no matter how crappy we are, because they're just more forgiving than we are. At least my family is. And we think, well, there's an evolved soul, so this animal is our guru and our teacher. Please don't do that. Don't do that for their sake, and don't do that for yours, right? Because you may never know what other purpose they chose to come into this world to do, that we may be getting in the way of by putting the burden on them to heal and care for us, to teach us, to love us, to help us. That isn't their job. That's your job. That's our job, to grow ourselves. Together as a family, we can grow ourselves together. But don't put our limitations in body, mind, and spirit, our limitations in spiritual development, our limitations in common sense. Don't put that on your animals. So no knee in the faces, none of the crazy, harsh techniques that people claim are positive training techniques for your dogs. None of that stuff. And I have a cat, okay? She's my second cat, and I always wanted a cat when I was little. And my mom was terribly allergic. And when the first cat came along, my first two Cavaliers were the ones that said, hey, she's coming home with us. And I'm like, what? Yeah, I knew who she was even. But, it pains me that my cat, as much as I love her, is an indoor cat, and she needs to be. Now, I have friends whose cats run loose and they're all over the place, and that works for them. It does not work for me. It does not work for the breeder I bought my cat from. And so how do you look at that? Well, what are their soul needs, but what are their practical needs? And so I've created a house where this cat really gets exercise. She gets entertained. Her brain is working when she's not sleeping. And so I feel like I'm giving her the best life possible under the circumstances. And that's really all that we can do, right? Give them the best lives possible, remembering that they are first and foremost souls, second family members, and third and equally animals, which means they are predators and prey. So you have to think about where their mind is in any particular situation. Now, it means, for example, in looking at my animals currently, my dog is 6, and I was really healthy until I wasn't, until I was told, hey, you need your hip replaced. And I'm like, what? I was fine like 2 days ago. And it just started hurting. I mean, like, what? But now I'm looking at finding my dog a new home, maybe permanently, for his needs, and trying to explain to him that he needs that to have a happy life. and maybe we can get back together again. I have no idea what's going to happen in the future, but it's a conversation. If you have a similar situation, it's a conversation you need to have with them. Things change in families, and you need to help them be aware of that. But then again, here's an example outside of my own family of a situation where an animal was confused about its life. Okay, so I was working with a horse, right? So, things go wrong, right? I mean, we choose the body we think we need in that lifetime to do our work in, and then, maybe it doesn't always work out like you think. I mean, boy, my life sure hasn't worked out like I thought. So I don't know, that's it, right? We're souls, we choose a body, and then anything can happen, right? Because bodies are inherently fragile. So this horse felt like it had messed up and chosen the wrong body. And it wanted to die. It was a young horse, like 5 or 6 years old, and it didn't want to live any longer. It realized it made a mistake, and it didn't want to be in a horse body. And I'm like, well, okay, but here's another way to look at it, right? I mean, because if you are in conversation with anyone, but particularly if you choose a job like mine, you have to be open-minded and broad thinking, so to speak. You have to be able to meet a soul in a body where it is, right? So this horse, I'm talking to it, and I'm looking at it, and I'm thinking, wow, this horse could live 10, 15 years. And maybe that would be a waste of a body if it died now, but it isn't my choice. My job, as I have learned from working with other beings on the planet, not animals, my job is to talk with things, to help them and humans work out the consequences of our actions. And in that particular situation, I had a person and a horse, and a person who knew the horse was unhappy. So the horse wanted to die, and I said, well, you might consider that the choice of your body is a lesson that you learned, that maybe you're not going to want to be a horse next time around, right? But is it really the right thing to die now and abandon this body when you're healthy, right? And you could live another 10 or 15 years. You could have experiences in this horse body that would give your soul more information about how to love itself. That could give you more information to remember next time you choose, that you could simply live out your life as a horse and just meet the future as it comes, right? I don't believe in telling other people what to do, other people, whatever bodies they're in. But we should be able to offer advice, comfort, and support. And so I did that, and the horse chose to stay and live in the horse body. And I don't know what happened after that. I hope that the horse managed to find contentment, or maybe, they think so differently than us because their experiences are different and their conception of things is different. That maybe the person who lived with a horse would also helping that horse, get through whatever insecurities it might have had, whatever misunderstandings it had that we didn't completely understand. For example, our animal families can be very literal. My first cavalier, Murphy, my female cavalier, she had bladder infection, and I had to be gone for a little bit. And I said, if you need to pee, go pee right by the door on the stone floor. So I come home, and she's peed right by the door on the wood floor, which means the floor got warped. And I said, well, okay. I mean, I'm not going to yell at her. She was sick, and she was trying to do her best. And I said, well, why did you pee on the wood floor instead of the stone floor? And she had a really good reason. She thought it would soak into the stone and make a terrible mess and be smelly and horrible. And she thought because the wood floor was shiny, it would stay on the surface. Do you ever think how clever our animals are in thinking through things? They just don't think the same way we do. But her reasons were very valid and were not something I had thought of before. So, again, intuition and common sense in living with our animal families. So, we have sole purpose as families. That's to live together, to grow in love and connection, to support each other's soul journey as family members. But beyond that, again, we have to consider the jobs in our bodies. What do our jobs do that transcend our bodies? For humans, that's taking care of the house, earning a living, going out to a job. And for animals, what is it? Laying around the house being bored all day, I ask my cat, well, would you like to monitor the house and watch out for birds or that crow that keeps landing on the deck or other animals in the neighborhood? And I ask my dog to be patient till the next time we get to go for a walk. And, what would he like to do for fun when we come home? That's being considerate, right? And listening, because your intuition will give you information on that. So, and sometimes we find out from animals exactly kind of what's going on there. And quickly before the break, I had a client. I'd never met her before. I have seen her several times since, but she came to talk to her deceased dog. And as the dog started to talk, I became quite concerned because the dog was very quiet. And she said that she had come, that one of the things that she had done after she joined the family was take on the job of protecting the woman from the husband who was abusing her. Imagine how hard that was to say and how careful I had to be at saying it and how shocked the person was to hear that her deceased dog was bringing that up in the conversation. I was trying to protect you, right? So it just goes that our sole purpose can alter our choice, and how we live our lives alters based on circumstances. After the break, I'm going to talk about some plain matter of fact things that you could do to support your animal families in their lives. Hang on.
A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose, to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free. ascendinghearts.com.
Consistently attract soulmate clients, begin showing up on brand, monetizing on your calling. Welcome all spiritual coaches, leaders, healers, light workers, and practitioners to a show that turns you on in your business and amplifies your magnetism. I'm host, catalyst, and spiritual business coach Rosalind Fung, and I'm here to journey with you into the juicy and help you discover where the real gaps are. Ignite your mindset and soul with strategies and systems as each episode takes you to the sweet spot that activates your soulgasmic business by tuning in on Tuesdays at 10 a.m. Mountain. Join me for your light language activation and let's magnetize and monetize.
If I could be you,
and you could be me for just 1 hour.
If you could find a way
to get inside
each other's mind.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
We've all felt left out. And for some, that feeling lasts more than a moment. We can change that. Learn how at belongingbeginswithus.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Welcome back to the Practical Intuitive Mind, Body, Spirit for the Real World. It's Robyn, Fritz, and we've been talking about intuition, common sense, and our animal family. So we've been talking about cosmic things, right? Soul purpose, soul choice. And, my animals have seriously had cosmic jobs that, I'll talk about in another show. I was stunned to discover them and amused because there's so much I don't know, and I choose to be amused at what I don't know and to delight in learning things. But I want you to think about one thing. People talk about the concept of mindfulness, right? Be mindful with your animal families, right? Pay attention to them. Know that they have inner lives, right? If I haven't made that clear yet, they have inner lives, right? And that is not the concept that people call anthropomorphism. And they're going to throw that in your face. Oh, blah, blah, your dog or your cat. And they'd be wrong, right? Because we have this tendency to think that if you're not human, you're not good enough, you're not equal, you're not thinking, you're not this, you're not that, right? Again, patriarchy in action. And inner lives should be something we're thinking about in living with our animals. So how do we support their inner lives, right? How do we give them the best chance to meet their soul purpose beyond being in a family? And that's by maybe not always listening to the people around you who are the trainers, who are the veterinarians, and who are the shelter workers. So let me jump into some of these topics because I know I'm going to piss you off. Oop, I'm not sure I could use that word on the radio, so maybe you can bleep it. All right, vaccinations. I over-vaccinated my Cavalier Murphy because they told me that was what you did. That's what you're supposed to do. Now, whole vaccination aside with COVID, right? If you're not vaccinated with COVID, you're a fool, right? And you should know better. But the whole issue of vaccinations with animals and take is trying to stop contagious diseases from spreading, like rabies, which kills everything, or parvovirus. Now, when I was a little kid, we lost a dog to parvo, to distemper, I should say. And that's devastating, right? But there are ways of making sure your animal is safe without over-vaccinating them. So do your research, I spent so many hours researching healthcare and so many hours taking care of my animals. And Murphy, my first Cavalier, was immune compromised for the first 5 years of her life. I worked like hell and spent a lot of money trying to help her get well. And part of the problem was she was over vaccinated. So I learned, right? So use your common sense, right? There are things that you can do besides vaccination. I gave my kids their baby series and that's it, right? They don't need anything else. So feel the answers. It's hard sometimes. Feel what's going on with them. Be mindful of how they're reacting. Are they limping? Are they hurting somehow? Are they depressed for some reason? I mean, my dog has been a little depressed lately because I'm hoping it's because we haven't been out together, but in truth, he hasn't been out enough to get enough walks in the last 3 or 4 months before I realized, or somebody finally told me what was wrong with my hip. Right, they need attention, they need care, and I explained to him what was going on, and he still needs emotional support, right? As do we all, right? When somebody's down in the family, we're all down. And this last year, both my kids were down. The cat with a strep infection, and I don't know how an indoor cat gets a strep infection, but she did. And he got bronchitis, and we were all taking care of each other, and that's what you do, right? So, spay and neuter. Really, I mean, come on. That is such a crazy, stupid subject that I want you to start thinking about. Because I did everything I could for my girl, my Murphy, and I spayed her early, like they said, and then she died of cancer, hemangiosarcoma, at almost 14 years old, that is linked to early spay-neuter. And here's the problem. Science and compassion seem to be two different things, as well as science and common sense, right? So bring your intuition into the mix in all of these issues, from food, right? What's the right food to feed them? Well, find out what works for your particular animal, right? What is the right vaccination protocol? Find out what's going on in your area. There are things that you can tests that you can run, titers that you can run to find out if they need to be vaccinated again, because they're finding out that we don't, that suggestions were made based on politics and making money versus the health and welfare of your animal family. Spay and neuter was an issue. Patriarchy in full definition, right? So we have too many animals running around. So they go into the shelter, and then people who adopt them out of the shelter aren't smart enough to take care of them. So we're going to neuter them before we give them into families. Like, yeah. And when was the last time you saw somebody from a shelter in the cancer ward sitting there with you in a time when 50% of our dogs over 10 are getting cancer? Why? Because they were spayed and neutered early. That's crazy, people. And now, really, if you're working with the really good people, the people who are breeding and responsibly and taking care and listening, right? And the people who are adopting animals from wherever and taking really good care of them. Your dog isn't going to go out my dog is not neutered. My boy is not neutered. And I told his breeder, there's no way I'm going to agree to that, right? And he's never going to breed. And he's not, because, he doesn't run loose in the neighborhood. He'd like to, right? Because he thinks life is an adventure, and it doesn't occur to him that he could get run over by a car or whatever. So he's not running loose, and he would love to breed with another dog, and he's never going to get the chance, although he would love it, and he's made that clear. But he's healthy. And what we've discovered by early spay neuter is not only do they get cancer, they get arthritis, they get hip dysplasia, they get overweight. Neutered male dogs are more likely to get prostate cancer than unneutered dogs. People, the science is there. So quit listening to the politics. And then as you do this research, what does your common sense tell you? What does your intuition tell you? Does your intuition tell you you should neuter a baby? And I asked the question way back when, what about their bones? What about their proper hormonal development? Oh, they'll be just fine. Yeah, that's why 50% of our dogs are getting cancer. Yeah, that's why they get arthritis. Well, for years, if you had a dog that you were going to use as a working dog, hunting or working with animals or competitive sports, they tell you not to neuter them because their bones don't grow in right? I have the healthiest dog right now you've ever seen. He's beautifully healthy, strong, and fit. And part of that is because I wouldn't let him be neutered, right? So let's talk about the shelter system. The whole word rescue. Now, listen to your intuition as you say that word, as you hear the word rescue, right? A lot of us were emotional about that. A lot of us are thinking, oh my God, I need to do something to help all these poor animals. Awesome, we do, right? We need to help each other, whatever we are, whatever body we're in. But the shelter system is not working. And it hasn't worked for a very long time. And we should be changing it. And I say this from common sense. I say this from looking at it. And I'm saying this intuitively. How many animals' lives, sole purpose, sole choice, have we damaged through a shelter system which is intent on telling you that you're not smart enough to know how to take care of your dog, so they're going to, or cat or whatever, and they're going to neuter it so that you don't have that choice? Really? They're not there for anything else. That was an idea they thought when we thought we had too many animals. But you know what the real problem is? Poverty. The real problem is patriarchal attitudes that keep us from thinking properly. The real attitude is not allowing people to live as family members where they make these choices for themselves. If that policy had worked, we would not have animals in shelters, right? We would have maybe a few old ones, or maybe somewhere families had to break up for whatever reason. Yeah, but that's not the case. We still have full shelters. So think about it. Go back through the intuition and common sense and see where that takes you. And you'll be surprised to find that putting aside politics and what you thought was the right thing and the whole word rescue, when in fact what you're doing is providing a family for what we hope is a heart match for you and for that animal. That's what you're hoping for. Now, I have always bought purebred animals and I am proud of them. I like the history. I like the animal. I know what I'm getting. And after very, very hard days working with people in crisis or people who have really serious issues to discuss, healing or intuitive insight that they need, I like to close my door and know what I've got in my house with me. I love my animals. And if you feel like you need to go to a shelter, then do it responsibly. And don't support any sort of a system that insists that they're smarter than you and they know more than you and they should neuter that animal before it leaves. Because it's money and it's politics. Now, we're getting here to the end of the hour. So I want to ask you to think about something. Where's your passion with your animal families? How does it sit with you? How does it feel? Right? How does your intuition work? I mean, do you feel feelings and emotions? Do you hear them talk? Do you see pictures that they're showing you? Do you just know things? For me, it's all four of those, and they all sort of combine so that boom, 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 this, and this happen. For other people, they just see pictures or whatever, and that's all fine, and your intuition changes over time, and give yourself a break, right? It's really hard, even with your own families. And I know with my own families, when I have tough decisions, I call people I trust and have them talk with them too. That independent outside voice, right? As long as you know that the person you're consulting is right in their head, so to speak, is using their common sense, is using their love, their innate love, right? So here's a summary. We never know everything about our souls. So we never know everything about our animal souls either. All we can do is choose to love freely, right? And that is the most awesome thing in the world. So I invite you to choose love, to use your intuition and your common sense to give practical information with your animals' lives. And then that mind-blowing, wow, what did you come here to do? What are you doing? Like, what? Dragons are real? Wow. And find out all of the amazing things that your animal family knows. But know one thing, they are here because they chose to be with you and you chose to be with them. And let's hope we make it to the end of our respective lives together, right? Because that's all we can do, right? We are families. We have our issues. We make mistakes. Love always helps, and it's always the goal. So remember, we never know everything. We can only know what love teaches us, and we can only ever cling to that. So I want to leave you with two things. One is my dog, Alki, who really taught me about love. Love I was holding out on. I was not listening to. I was not interested. And all that little boy wanted to do was love me. And he gave up a lot to love me. And then he came back to love me again as Ollie right now. And I asked him, I said, what did we do together? And he said, because we loved each other, there's more love in the world. Because we loved each other, there's more love in the world. What else is there, people? What else is there than for you to share your life with some being, human, animal, whatever, that will love you as much as you will love them and maybe even more? And one last thing, my dog Murphy, after she passed, she chose not to come back. Despite all the work that I did, she had a very painful life. But she said to me, thank you, Mother, for the deep soul work you do that helps them see us. So I hope that this hour has given you some ideas of souls and soul purpose. of choice in how to physically care for your animals. Make sensible choices about food, what you can afford, vaccines, spay and neuter, and even end-of-life issues. Know that love will carry you through, but keep researching, keep applying it, keep finding out what they want, and you will not go wrong. We make mistakes, things happen, right? But love really does carry us forward. So thank you for joining me. My name again, Robyn Fritz. You can find me at robynfritz.com, ROBYNFRITZ.com. I offer personal and business intuition, mediumship, animal communication, clearing space with space cooperating, which is finding out what the space needs and wants, right? Past life regression, a soul clearing session, spiritual awakening. I'm here for you, and we are all in it together. Take care. I will see you in September. Be safe.